Good afternoon. My name is Beth Drucker, and I am the co-facilitator of Go Green, Illinois, along with Kim Stone, who's a councilwoman in Highland Park. She'll be announcing our speakers and our program, but first I just am going to welcome all of you and thank you for coming to our meeting. We have an interesting topic, one that we actually have not really dealt with before, and that is how to reduce vehicle miles traveled and to promote sustainability in our community. So we hope that this is of interest to all of you. And if you know that there are any other people in your community that would be interested in the program, we are recording it, and it is could be found on the YouTube channel for Go Green, Illinois. So this organization has been running since 2013, and it is growing every single month. I want to welcome some of the new members who may not even be signed on yet because it's only 103. But we do have, just in the last 2 months, we have had a group start in the Northwest neighborhoods of the city of Chicago. Cindy Kroller has organized Go Green Northwest Chicago. We have a group starting in McHenry, not the county, but the village of McHenry. Go Green Des Plaines, Liz Bowman and colleagues have established their group. Go Green Brookfield has gotten sort of newly reactivated. Iris Overstreet Strupp is with us today. More and more people from Naperville and Palatine. We noticed someone from Western Springs for the first time. And the list keeps growing. It's very likely that we are going to continue our meetings via Zoom so that all of us can meet together without the commuting time. So there are a lot of topics that are happening, and it's hard to choose only 6 each year to talk with. There's a lot happening with leaf blowers and ordinances. We're going to touch on that at the July meeting. A lot of very interesting work being done about artificial turf. Our colleagues at Green Mines, Lake Forest Bluff Green Mines, have been doing a lot about artificial turf. If that's an issue in your community, make sure you learn about the environmental impact of that. And a lot of sustainable yard tours being planned for this summer. If your community doesn't have one, you can start with 1 or 2 lawns that really set a great example for other people in your community. Lots of native plant sales that are happening more and more. If you bring native plants to your community, people will put them in the ground. It's a great way to increase habitat and make money at the same time. And also the regional working group on leaf blowers is proceeding, led by the village managers of Highland Park and Wilmette. And if your community is interested in that issue, you'll be interested in what this consortium comes up with by the end of the year. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to colleague Kim Stone from Highland Park, who will tell us more. Oh, one other thing. We're going to be talking in July also about the possibility of all of our suburbs working independently to create a small hyperlocal solar tour in your communities. Last year, Wilmette and Northbrook did this, but we set it for the same date as the Illinois Solar Tour, which is September 24th. So we'd like you guys to start thinking about whether or not it would help to promote solar in your community if you highlighted 4 or 5 or 6 homes that already have solar in September as part of that statewide tour. And Kim is going to talk a little bit about an important referendum coming up for the forest preserves of Cook County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Stone.
I think I need to leave the forest preserve referendum to you because I'm in Lake County. So I don't know a whole lot about it.
Okay.
But I know that there's a referendum on the ballot to raise some money for the Forest Preserve District of Cook County for those of you who are in Cook County.
Right. We had a great program 2 months ago where we highlighted the incredibly important work that the forest preserves are doing. And in order to do that work, they need funding that they can rely on. We all have learned that you can't just set land aside and keep it. It just degrades. It has to be protected. It's got to be restored, and it takes a lot of work, and that takes money. So there's a very important referendum that's going to be on the November ballot. So everyone, if you are a community in Cook County, they are asking the Go Green groups to spread the word about the importance of saying yes to that additional funding source for the Cook County Forest Preserves. And so with that, Kim, I'm going to pin you and you can start our program.
Okay, thank you. So it's 90 degrees here in Highland Park, where it is cooler by the lake. It's only May 10th. Climate change is upon us. And so today's program is going to focus on transportation, which is there's a little bit of quibbling back and forth. Transportation, I believe, is the largest sector. I'm looking at Edith of greenhouse gas emissions in the US, but is not the largest sector of greenhouse gas emissions in Illinois. It's about a third of emissions. Buildings emit a little bit more here because we have winter and summer when we need more heat and cooling than certain other regions. So we're going to talk first or hear first from State Representative Robyn Gabel, who has been a champion of doing things to try and increase electrification of vehicles to reduce the pollution that they generate in the greenhouse gases. And then we will turn to reducing vehicle miles traveled and getting people out of the car. So let me introduce Robyn first, and then we will do introductions again after.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it. And thank you, Beth. Good to see you both again. And everybody here, this is a great turnout, 46 people, wonderful. I know there's a lot of interest for this issue in our communities. My understanding is that transportation sector is the biggest polluter in the Midwest. And so it's incredibly important for us to address this issue in the transportation sector. And to me, I call it electrifying the transportation sector. So, we can see that electric vehicles are the future of driving. Not only are they cheaper to operate, but they are an important part of addressing climate change. So, during this pandemic, you heard it was hard to get a regular car, but yet the sale of electric vehicles grew by 83% during this pandemic. And 80% of the charging is at home. It's cheaper and it's obviously more convenient. A new factoid that I learned was that by 2035, GM is only going to be selling electric cars. And by 2040, Honda, Ford, and GM will no longer be manufacturing internal combustion engine vehicles. So I try to look to the future, and I think that what we need to do is make sure that there are vehicle charging stations all around, and particularly by people's homes. So the bill that I introduced last year, well, this year and the year before, is House Bill 3125, if anybody wants to look it up. And what this bill does is it sets Illinois on a path toward assuring that residents in Illinois can have access to electric vehicle charging stations, whether they live in a single family home, a multifamily dwelling, or in affordable housing. So the bill is pretty comprehensive. It has the first section talks about new construction. So, it's a thoughtful plan and it's a long range plan. It doesn't say immediately that every place has to have charging stations. First thing we're trying to do is for any new construction that they would have to make sure that the wiring was in so that you could easily put a vehicle charging station there. As you know, if you wait until after you lay all the cement and everything else, by the time you go to put in a charging station, it costs so much more to retrofit it. So the idea is let's look at new construction, both single family homes and apartment buildings, and make sure that the wiring is laid. The second part of the bill talks about condo associations and the responsibility that they have to make sure that there is a way for people to charge at home, at their location. And it sets forth a number of different rules and regulations on how to do that. And then the third aspect is about figuring out how landlords can make charging stations accessible to their tenants as well. So there's rules in there about what's allowed, what's not allowed, and basically people would have to pay for the electricity, but at least it would be available. And that's the most important thing, because as I said, 80% of people want to charge at home. So the bill looked like it was moving along. It came out of the House. It was voted out of the House of Representatives, moved over to the Senate, and then suddenly there appeared all this opposition. So the realtors were opposed. Then the Condo Association, Illinois Condo Association decided to be opposed. And then the Apartment Association, Rental Apartment Association decided to be opposed. So as you know, it was a shortened session. We didn't have time to really get into it all with all these different groups. But so the bill did not get out of the Senate. It's still there. My hope is that we can come to some agreement with these three groups, the realtors being the most important. So if anybody's a realtor or knows the Realtor Association, you could give them a call, the Illinois Realtors PAC, and talk to them about why you think this is an important piece of legislation. Other states have passed these kinds of bills. And, you know, it's us just trying to get ahead of the curve. We can't wait till everybody's driving an electric vehicle before we deal with this policy. So that's my update on House Bill 3125. And I appreciate the opportunity to share it with people. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Robyn. I've got just a couple questions. Are there any other things that we can do besides contacting the Realtors Association to move this forward?
Well, if you own apartment building, you can call the Illinois Apartment Association. And I also, and if you live in a condo, you can call the Illinois Condo Association. So those are the brick wall that we've hit right now. But keep an eye on it. You know, we did get it out of the House. My colleagues like it. It's not an issue that my colleagues don't like it. And after more negotiation with these three groups, if it ends up that we can't get a resolution, we may just try to run it anyway. Although in the Senate, it's a little harder to do that, but we'll see.
Okay, and I want to just say two quick things on this topic. I have been trying in Highland Park to get something similar on our agenda just for the city to pass a requirement for EV wiring in new construction, and hopefully then to phase it in for other construction as well. And we've put that sort of on pause because of your bill. So I'm hoping that this will pass statewide so that we don't have to do it municipality by municipality, but we will do what we have to do. I have a detached garage. I put wiring in when we built that garage 10 years ago. The electrician thought I was nuts. The conduit's not big enough, apparently, for what they put in 10 years ago. So to wire that garage, I have a bid from an electrician for $1,500. And that's just for wiring. In addition, it needs the charging station. But I can use the outlet. There's just an outlet in the garage and I'm using that at the moment. It's slower, but it works.
Well, that's all the charging station is a bigger outlet.
Right. But to put the bigger outlet in is $1,500.
Yeah.
So that's for a single family house, not for a condo building. I know someone who lives in a condo building in the city. They're putting in some EV chargers in the building, and any resident who wants one, it's $5,000 to wire per space. So it's just, it's really unrealistic, especially when we're talking about lower income people, to expect that. So this legislation would be really helpful because this is the way things are going. So thank you for your hard work on this and for being here to let us know what's going on. And hopefully we're gonna get this through the Senate in the fall.
Thank you. I was just looking at some of the questions in the chat. The cost for doing it is minimal in new construction. So that would just be part of the cost of new construction.
And just to build on that, here in Highland Park, all of the new construction buildings that have gone in, the apartments and the condos, the multifamily buildings, in the last 3 years or so include EV charging voluntarily, because most of the developers who are building them are driving electric cars. So they're putting them in, so it can't cost that much.
No.
It's just, I think it's an incremental cost.
Thank you.
So thank you, Robyn. You're welcome to stay, but I know you have a busy day, I'm sure. So
Thank
you don't have to if you don't want to.
Karen's here for me. Karen McCormick is here.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to Edith. Edith Makra from the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, who was the brains behind the climate action plan, the regional climate action plan. And one of the goals within that plan is to reduce vehicle miles traveled. So we need to get people out of their cars, not just electrify the cars. And Edith has put together a really great program. So I'm going to just turn it over to her and let her introduce the other speakers. I think
I'm unmuted. Sorry about that. Thank you everyone for your attention, and thank you so much to Go Green for hosting this topic. And I hate to do this to start out with numbers, but let me get this just out of my system maybe before Representative Gabriel leaves. I'd like to just clear up the discussion about Maggie. Do you mind not sharing? And I'll just share the greenhouse gas inventory just to make sure that we're clear on that. So as we've been working on this project to look at reducing vehicle miles traveled, we do revisit the climate action plan. And so what you should be seeing on the screen right now is the actual greenhouse gas inventory for the Chicago metro region. And this is based on, those of you who may have looked at greenhouse gas inventories before, this is based on actual energy consumed. And 69% of the energy in the 7-county metro region is from building energy and power generation. So that's the blue and the green sectors together. 29% is from transportation. And just to kind of, what does that mean? Why is it at the state level it actually flips? Transportation becomes the #1 source of emissions, and that is true likewise across the country. And while it's not sexy to be in the #2 position, I'll move into why this is really important in the climate action plan, because and I'll stop there. I just wanted to clear that up. So this is actually based on data. We're not quibbling, but if you can think about the boundaries for the region that you're measuring changes as what's inside that boundary changes. And so in the Chicago metro region, we have actually a very good transit system, and we have a lot of power plants that are not clean. So that's why the power plants outweigh we also have a lot of buildings, outweigh the transportation. So thank you for letting me get that off my chest. We'll go back to slides here, and I'll talk about why we're still really excited about reducing vehicle miles traveled. And so back to the climate action plan. You were kind enough to host us for shortly after the launch of the climate action plan. So many of you are very familiar with this plan, but a couple important things to just point out about this plan. This plan really focuses on what can be done at a local, municipal, and community level, which is why active transportation really matters, because there's a lot of influence by local governments and by community activists to create an infrastructure that gets people out of their cars. And that's why this is important, even if it isn't the #1 source of emissions in our region. Everything in this plan is scaled for local action and to empower local governments to take climate action. And that's the reason that we're now elevating this issue. Maggie, if you want to go to the next slide, and I can introduce my colleagues. Let me go over the goals, and then I'll introduce Maggie and Audrey. So what this climate plan out there, we've got a series of, there's 8 mitigation strategies and 6 adaptation strategies. We're really looking to get busy on this plan right away. And so what actions can we take immediately, and which ones are well underway? As I'm going to say, biking and walking is well underway, particularly in the communities represented by Go Green, but not necessarily framed and elevated with the same kind of urgency in climate action. And so that's really the reason that we were thrilled, the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is just thrilled to be invited to partner with the likes of Metropolitan Planning Council and Active Transportation Alliance. So if I could, Maggie, and well, not sure who's speaking first, but Audrey, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, thank you so much for inviting us to be here today. I am Audrey Wennink, and I am the Director of Transportation at the Metropolitan Planning Council. And I'll also introduce Maggie. So we have everyone introduced. Maggie, do you want to just say your hello? We hear your lovely voice.
There we go. Sorry, I was muted. I'm Maggie Czerwinski. I'm an advocacy manager at the Active Transportation Alliance, and we're a nonprofit. We advocate for walking, biking, and transit around the region.
Great. Yeah, and so our three organizations are working together on this program in 2022 and probably beyond, where we're trying to elevate and accelerate investment in biking and walking and transit-oriented development. So the goals of this project, which will include events and some research, and I'll get into that in a minute, are to really encourage prioritizing these investments and to accelerate them given the urgency of climate action. And to help people understand that enabling more biking and walking and other modes besides driving is climate action. So we are providing information on how to fund projects, as we often hear that people feel that financial resources are a barrier. So trying to overcome some of the common barriers, and there are a wide range of funding sources. And I think the best kept secret in transportation is that, you know, we actually have a ton of money in transportation, and it's really a question of how we use it. And more is on the way. As we all know, there's a federal transportation, the federal infrastructure bill was passed and is just starting to be implemented. And over the next 5 years, there will be a large number of, there'll be not only an infusion of additional formula funds, but there will also be a large number of discretionary grant programs, some of which are specifically focused on biking and walking and safety in our transportation system. So we want to really elevate the importance of this and encourage folks to go after those funds, and then also to use funds that they already get, and they may get in larger amounts, like the Surface Transportation Block Group funds, and recognize that those are flexible. Those are not only for roads. Those can be used for biking and pedestrian infrastructure, and it's really all a matter of a community's priorities. And so just, highlighting that. If we go to the next slide, and so how are we doing this? We are, with our programming and our research, we're highlighting not only the climate benefits of these strategies, but also there's so many other benefits that are really, really important right now, since we're at this sort of intersection of a lot of crises, unfortunately. We have a climate crisis, we have a traffic safety crisis. If you haven't heard, we have the biggest numbers of pedestrians and bicyclists being killed on the roads. I'm not going to say I can't say in history, but in many, many years, it's a terrible tragedy, and making a safe biking and walking infrastructure is a really big part of solving that. Affordability, having affordable transportation for low-income households, accessibility for people with disabilities and people at all ages and abilities. Teenagers don't drive. A lot of older citizens give up driving, and making sure that their communities work for people at every age and ability. And then economic competitiveness, making sure that communities are places that are attractive for people at all stages of life. And we also see that walkability is something that most people really want as part of their communities, and that makes their communities more competitive. And so that this is not just nice to have. It's really important in terms of having communities be economically healthy as well. We are providing forums for peer-to-peer sharing. So we, in our events, are providing information to communities, as well as leaving a lot of questions for leaders to ask questions of other communities so they can learn from each other. And we're trying to really help people overcome any barriers that they've run into. And we really want to inspire leaders. A lot of this does come down to political will and leadership, and just show what it can look like when you elevate biking and walking in your community, and you can actually see benefits. So quantifying those benefits, which we did an event last week. And then we're also conducting some research on trends and barriers to inform future efforts. And on the next slide, I can just sort of walk through what we're doing. All three of our organizations bring different sets of knowledge and different data to the table. So we're actually creating a spreadsheet database, which will itemize all the bicycle and pedestrian plans that exist in our region, and have a link to every single one, so that there's a repository that this doesn't exist right now, a repository of all the current plans, so that also neighboring communities can plan across their borders. I think, as we all know, transportation infrastructure goes across community borders all the time. And so making sure that we're building out connected networks, including with our neighbors. We're looking at communities, in terms of planning their comprehensive plans. Many communities have comprehensive plans. How much are they acknowledging the role that bicycle and pedestrian facilities play in livability of their community writ large? We're looking at which communities and how have been successful in securing federal funding, which comes through a variety of ways, through the councils of mayors. It comes through our regional metropolitan planning organization, which is the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, which some of you may have heard of. They distribute a lot of federal funds. Who's been able to get those? And if people haven't been successful, how can we help them? We also have some new data sources that have become available recently. Given all the technology in our lives, we have some new ways of looking at how much people are walking or biking or driving in communities. So we can look at a pie chart in every community and see how much people are moving by different modes other than driving, and also how much they're using transit. And then that can be a baseline, and communities can look at increasing those non-auto modes. We're also looking at just at a regional level how complete the sidewalk network is. We've become very aware in recent years that there are a lot of gaps in the sidewalk network that has lots of implications for Americans with disabilities, as well as access to transit. There are a lot of bus stops that have no sidewalks that lead to them. And it just, if you start to get into the details, you see there's a lot of things we need to fix. And then we've also been going on tour, talking to councils of governments and councils of mayors, and trying to get perspectives from their different communities' leadership on what they see as the barriers and opportunities, so that we can, again, try to support communities. So now I'll just run through the events that we're doing. We've completed one event, which was a little over a week ago, and there's a recording of that. So if anyone wants to see that, it's basically helping municipalities learn how to develop a bicycle and or pedestrian plan, why to do it. We had a couple of communities on there that Niles and Richton Parks that have done this and have implemented projects and can really talk about their actual on the ground experience. We also are going to be doing an event on June 22nd about transit oriented development, there's a ton of opportunity in our region. So many communities have metro stations, which, where we can be building more housing and more retail and employment near transit, so that people can live car light or car-free lifestyles, even in the suburbs. In July, we're going to do a dedicated event about funding, which I've referred to. In August, we're planning to do an event in a community, probably Brookfield, where we actually get out on the ground in person and talk about different projects, opportunities and challenges, and how projects have been developed. And then lastly, in the fall, we'll be talking about ADA transition plans. And this is where a community looks at its entire network of pedestrian infrastructure and identifies where there are barriers, where there are gaps. These were supposed to be done when the ADA passed 31 years ago, but we have learned that many communities in our region don't have them. And so CMAP, that I referred to earlier, our regional metropolitan planning organization, they're actually standing up a whole support department to help communities do that, and that will really improve the pedestrian environment. So stay tuned for those. I think someone dropped a link into the chat, this is a link to the recording. And then the registration page is not quite up and running yet, but will be very soon for the TOD event. You can always look at the MPC's website under our events, and I think all of our organizations, to find that link, those links for the registration for those events. If we move on to the next slide, we really now want to get into discussion with you. We wanted to tell you about what we're doing, but we really also today want to hear from you. We want to understand what the perspective is in your community in terms of who's asking for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, and how can we work with groups and advocates more to move this along even faster. So I'm going to stop talking for a moment and encourage you to either unmute yourselves and answer, or drop comments in the chat. We're looking at both, and just chime in about kind of what's the state of affairs that you're seeing in your community. And Beth,
Audrey,
yeah, go ahead.
if you could stop sharing that screen, we can get back to a gallery view of the, there we go. That's great. Okay. Okay. I can start really quickly, but if you have some comments that you'd like to make, and we talked to some of you in advance, I know that a lot of communities are doing really good work, and other communities don't have any bicycle or pedestrian advocates at all yet. And so hopefully that will change. Go Green, there's a Bike Walk Will Met organization, which is bicycle and pedestrian advocacy group. We do a little bit of transit as well. We meet via Zoom, and what we've discovered is that our transportation commission had absolutely nothing in their charter that said they were responsible for anything that didn't have a motor. And so one of the things that we did is that we lobbied and were successful in adding a bullet point to the responsibilities of our traffic commission, that they were in fact responsible for all issues related to walking and biking. So that was, if Iris, if you could mute yourself, that would be great, if that's you. We're not sure why we've got the pin on you, Iris. I'm not sure. So does anyone else want to talk about something that they did in their community that helped move things ahead, or a particular challenge? If you could add it to the chat, we'll keep an eye on it.
Liz Bowman has put her name in.
Okay.
Do you have something to say on this?
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that I've invited Cheryl to join us today, also from Des Plaines. She's part of a bike and walk group who, excuse me, has some history working with Des Plaines. She has told me that the group has been a little bit of a thorn in the side of the city. So I know that there is that advocacy group, and that Des Plaines has recently put in 2 electric charging stations in a shopping center area near downtown. But I'm looking forward to learning more from all of you, what else we can do. And specifically, what was the name of that organization that Audrey was speaking on behalf of?
I am representing the Metropolitan Planning Council. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Highland Park has a bike walk advisory group that has been working for many years. We recently, last week actually, did the bike and pedestrian count, which we have been doing really twice a year, except for last year. We did it once for the last almost 10 years. And we have been doing a lot of advocacy. We have succeeded in getting the city to put in place a plan, and we have recently updated that plan. So now it's called Move HP. It's on the City of Highland Park website. I'm looking at Peggy. What else do we have? We're a bike-friendly community recognized by the League of Illinois, or League of American Bicyclists, as is Wilmette, I believe, and some of the other communities on this call. And that's a really good resource for information on things you can do to make things more bike and pedestrian friendly. And we have also included funding in our capital plan in Highland Park to accomplish some of the goals in the bike and pedestrian plan, including filling gaps in the sidewalk network. I see Debbie Brown has said that they have nothing in Deerfield in terms of a bike plan.
One thing I wanted to mention, Kim, while you look at the chat, because there's definitely some people that are listing some interesting things. Kim Stone did a remarkable job in her community looking at the sidewalk ordinances and recognizing that it was not stated in a way that promoted easy installation of sidewalks where necessary. So she changed the sidewalk ordinance in Highland Park, and then inspired by her success, we did the same thing in Wilmette. And I would encourage you to try to improve your sidewalk ordinance before there's a hotly debated sidewalk under consideration. We were able to quietly change our sidewalk ordinance so one or two neighbors could no longer stand in the way of a sidewalk that is needed for the better good of our community. So that's one easy thing to do. Take a look at your sidewalk ordinance and see whether it's really working in favor of your community. Okay, Kim, anyone you see we were going to call on?
Iris has put in place or put in a link to Cycle Brookfield. I don't know if you've got anything more to say about that. And then, no, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm clearly having muting issues. So Cycle Brookfield is our local advocacy arm that has been involved with the Active Transportation Alliance. I actually moved to Brookfield in 2017, and that's it. It actually got passed our Active Transportation Plan a month before we moved here. So my knowledge is not very deep as to like the community action that led up to that. But I can say in our current sustainability planning, village-wide walkability, bikeability are very are highly prioritized. If there's anyone here from Cycle Brookfield, they could give a lot more info, but I'm not sure if anyone was able to make it.
Well, thank you for that information. Janet has posted that Palatine has a bike club. I don't know if Janet, if you want to unmute, if you've got any more to say about that.
Oh, sorry. This is Janet. There is a bike club. I am not a member, but I do know people in the bike club, and I know they have worked with the village to make accommodations for cyclists. They promote both recreational and purposeful biking, like bike to school, bike to work, that kind of thing. So there is a dedicated club for that. I also wanted to mention that there's a in the village, at the village level, there's a current engineering study to make improvements to Palatine Road, a small section of Palatine Road within the city itself. This study is really, the impetus for it is really to help accommodate more cars and trucks, but it does include more a part for better pedestrian and bicycling paths also. So it's a little bit of each.
Okay, thank you.
That's in study right now. Thank you.
Thanks. And then I see that there are comments that are similar from both Andy and Jay from Highland Park about building near downtown areas having an impact and about the impact of zoning. And Highland Park has, in fact, done a lot to increase the density of the zoning in the area around our central business district, which also has access to public transit. So those are good examples of transit-oriented development that Audrey mentioned earlier. And a lot of those buildings are being marketed to people as being walkable buildings. They have a little bit less parking required in those buildings because they are near the train station. So they got exemptions for parking, and one of those buildings has a zip car as well. Jacqueline, you have posted something about Glen Ellen, that there's a group that's been trying to build a trail on the DuPage River for years. I don't know if there's anything else you have to add about that. If there is, you can unmute. And then Charlie has said that there's a Skokie bike network that has recently been started to try and improve some of the bike trails in Skokie. If you've got more to say, you can unmute.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, we've last year we started up the Skokie Bike Network. Part of it was to have a constituency of cyclists specific to Skokie. A lot of cyclists in Skokie are involved in either the Evanston Bike Club or the Active Transportation Alliance, or have their own kind of activities going on. And so we set this up so it would be specific to Skokie. One of the things that we did is there's the Crawford Avenue rebuild project that was proposed, and they did the south end of it between Oakton and Devon, and it was just basically a 4-lane highway running through the village. And so we were able to get people organized to participate in the early stages of the planning for the next phase of it, which goes from Oakton to Gulf Road. And the plan is to include a bike lane in that rather than just have the 4 lanes. So that was an important a step for us. But I think one of the things, I think there's some good facilities in Skokie. The villages put in the Skokie Valley Trail, for example, and also we have the Channel Trail, and there's the Main Street bike lane. There's supposed to be some bike lanes on Church Street that are going to get painted this year. But in terms of reducing vehicle miles traveled, that's a really, I mean, it's nice to have these bike facilities, but it's very difficult to get beyond cycling as recreation rather than transportation. And the primary thing is, how do we accommodate more cars, and how do we build more parking lots and driveways? And it's very, very frustrating. I think there's a lot of land use decisions or land use requirements that are baked into codes that push people out of the way and put down more pavement. And we've been trying to take a more critical look at the parking ordinance, for example, and also some of the zoning density and other various land use policies that really promote a sprawl kind of topology rather than a more compact and walkable, and minimizing the required amount of driving. Effectively, I think and Skokie's not as bad as some places, but I think in a lot of places, your building codes and your building standards are effectively end up being a mandate to drive.
Thanks. That's a good point. And I think towards that end, I just want to mention that the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, which is the regional planning agency in our area, is having a meeting tomorrow morning, and people are able to attend that virtual meeting and speak during the public comment period. I plan to do so because their plan is talking about widening and expanding a lot of roads in our region. And I'm concerned that that's what they've chosen to focus on rather than putting money into bike and pedestrian infrastructure and public transit and trying to figure out how to get people around without cars, especially given the time frame we're in terms of climate change. So take a look at the website for CMAP, Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. And if you're able to attend tomorrow morning, their virtual meeting, and speak up about this topic, please do so. There are a lot more comments in the chat as well. Glenview has an active bicycle program, and they have contracted with an engineer to put together a bike walk plan. One of the things that they're working on is eliminating the problems that Beth and I mentioned with sidewalk installation guidelines, and they're paying $104,000 on this contract. And I just want to say that changing your sidewalk ordinance is not rocket science. And for a lot less than $104,000, Glenview could take a look at the ordinance that Highland Park recently put in place, or some of the other communities near here have in place, and probably could come up with a sidewalk ordinance that would be, something that wouldn't allow neighbors to reject sidewalks so easily. Lincolnwood has turned railroad tracks into bike and walk paths. I mean, people can go on here and read. There's more about Glencoe. There's Northbrook. So if people want to go on here and take a look through the chat, there's lots of interesting information people have put in about what's going on. But I don't want to take too much time away, because I know that Maggie probably has things to say, and Audrey and Edith. So I want to let you continue on.
Sure. I mean, we had a couple other questions, but I think we've also kind of covered a lot of the other questions. We do also want to go over a couple of slides about how, actions you and your members can take. I think if you have any other things that you want to add in terms of like the biggest barriers you're running into that we can all collectively try to help each other solve, do please continue to add those things into the chat. And then I think, Maggie, why don't you go ahead and put up the what can you do if your plan is sitting on the shelf, and then how can you help slides.
All right, one moment. All right. All right, so of those of you who are here, it sounds like some of you do have a plan, some of you don't, a walking and biking plan. And we try to encourage, so what Audrey just spoke about the other week, we had a webinar about developing an active transportation plan or a walking and biking plan and the importance of it and how it can help your community move forward and actually building walking and biking facilities. But in some cases, the plan ends up sitting on the shelf. It was perhaps created 10 years ago and it's forgotten about and nothing is happening. So what do you do if that's the case? So we do have, so Audrey did also speak about how we're working on building kind of a database of complete streets policies of walking and biking plans around the region. And this is an older map that we created. So this will be updated and fine-tuned, but if you're curious, see if you can find your community on this map. But these are communities in our region that have complete streets policies, which that's a policy which states that when a new road is built, that all road users need to be considered. So not just cars, but also people walking, biking, taking transit. And we have at least 60 complete streets policies around our region. They can be a helpful policy to have to help bring in more funding into your community and guide leaders, staff in making sure that walking, biking, and transit is considered as projects are developed. So this map is a map of active transportation plans or walking and biking plans around our region. And we have at least 87 plans around Chicagoland. A lot of these plans are older. They're older than 10 years. And it's recommended that plans are updated at least every 10 years because one, community needs and interests change, and two, their new tools become available. So 10 years ago, buffered bike lanes weren't really a thing, or green bike lanes. So that's just adding more protection to a bike lane by putting painted buffer along the side of a path or even a protected bike lane. So creating more of a barrier and separation between the person biking and car traffic. So again, you might have a plan in your community that you're not seeing anything moving forward. So we'll talk a little bit about ways to try to reactivate that plan. And then also you might not have a plan. So that's something that is definitely worth talking to your leadership at your community to encourage investment in active transportation in the future. And just one note about plans that sit on the shelf. So I know one of you in the chat mentioned from Glenview or from Glen Ellen, you mentioned the East Branch DuPage River Trail project. So that was actually a plan. So it's a plan of a trail that would connect the Illinois Prairie Path to the Great Western Trail. And that was a plan from 20 years ago, and it was just sitting there, nothing was happening. And then this group of individuals from Glen Ellen, Lombard, and a couple other nearby cities decided, they found out about that plan, and they decided they wanted to they wanted that trail for the community, for DuPage County, for the region, and they started a petition. They collected over 5,000 signatures, and through their efforts, they've been doing a lot of. They actually established themselves as a nonprofit, but through their efforts, they were able to get 3 government agencies to commit $150,000 to do some preliminary engineering. So that study just was completed. So they're looking at different trail alignments right now. So that is moving forward, but it was because of people that found out about a plan and tried to and are working to push it forward and make sure leadership at their local government as well as the county government are aware of this plan and that there's community interest. So we just have a couple slides here about just a handful of ideas about how can you help, how can you get involved in and seeing, what these plans get implemented to just see more walking and biking projects in your community. So one is advocating for local dollars to be spent on walking, biking, and transit projects and development. And as Kim was mentioning in Highland Park, they have a budget item in their capital plan that dedicates money towards sidewalks and towards active transportation. Skokie does that too. There's a few other communities. So making sure you have a local budget can really help move forward a plan and can also help you. So there are a lot of grant opportunities out there for walking and biking projects, but you often need to contribute a local match. So having that dedicated funding can also help you meet that local match requirement. So you're bringing in a lot of federal and state money then into your community because of that small investment. The second thing here is advocating to oppose road widening projects, which Kim mentioned. So we know that as Audrey mentioned, there's a lot of funding in transportation. Most of that funding goes towards road projects and widening road projects, and they're incredibly expensive. And I'll let Audrey actually step in here real quick to talk a little bit more about the ask we have or an opportunity to get involved in opposing these types of projects.
Yeah, and I think Edith dropped a link into the chat with information about the CMAP board meeting tomorrow, where Kim is going to testify. And basically what's happening is CMAP, our regional planning organization, is developing a list of regionally significant projects, which is sort of a statement on what are the priorities of our region of where we're spending our money. And a huge share of that is going towards road widenings. And that means that you have more lane miles of roads to maintain forever in the future. And the traffic safety issues often are made worse. When you widen roadways, there's more cars and cars go faster, and it makes it more and more unpleasant and unsafe for people to cross roads, biking and walking. And so you're actually doing a lot of damage to this cause by widening roads. And just digging a real hole for yourselves in terms of the future maintenance of all this asphalt, which is incredibly expensive. So we realize that it's a challenging conversation, especially in suburbs and in America, where we have a real auto-oriented culture. But it is possible when people see the wide range of benefits. First of all, the climate, which is why we're here. The climate benefits are urgent. And then, as we said, everything from making life more affordable for lower income communities, safety, environmental economic competitiveness, communities for all ages and abilities. So trying to have a more complete conversation with people about the benefits of investing in things other than road widening, using that money to invest in your transit-oriented development, your transit, your walking, your biking, instead of one road widening project. I mean, what could you build for the cost of one road widening project? Just trying to have a really much more sophisticated conversation about trade-offs in this region. And you are the perfect people to try to have those conversations in your communities.
Great, thanks. And And a couple other ideas for you all is one is cultivating community leadership as well as political will for sustainable transportation investment. Part of this is we have a lot of advocacy trainings around building up community support and as well as reaching out to your elected officials, reaching out to your village or city staff can go a long way, and just trying to developing a relationship with them, and asking questions, so what are we doing to invest in walking, biking, and transit? Is there anything I can do to help? Are we looking for any resources? So, and we're then here to help you, to support you as you're having those conversations and looking for resources. So another idea is having or starting or joining a bicycle pedestrian commission in your community. So those commissions are really helpful in helping a community advance their walking and biking plan. They can really hold the community accountable and keep reminding leadership that this is an important community priority. And then sharing the message and information about what's successful in your community. So that's something we definitely want to hear about because that can inspire others to make the same investment, your neighbors, other communities around the region. And then identifying barriers is something we're looking to do right now, and then reaching out for help on how to overcome them. And collectively we can share resources, brainstorm ideas on overcoming those barriers. And then a few other things we just wanted you to be aware of. Well, one, which Audrey spoke about, is we have this event series for the Regional Climate Action Plan throughout this year. So you're all invited to join all of those events and spreading the word. We'd really love to make sure village and city staff know about these events, that your trustees, your commissioners, your mayors, your presidents know about these events and inspire them. And then so Active Trans, we have a suburban advocacy program that I know several of you on this call and several of you are involved in this. We have a lot of resources that we can share. We have a lot of past webinars about various topics, whether it's bike design or zoning or the ins and outs of a complete streets policy, or just a conversation with an engineer, or adding art to a walking and bike project to create more community investment. So there's a number of resources. We also have bi-monthly meetings, lunchtime calls. So you're all welcome to join those. And it's a place where we share different events and action items and activities going on around our region. And then it's a place where people ask questions, share ideas, and just connect with other advocates around the region. You'll be surprised that there are a lot of people throughout Chicagoland that are very, very interested in improving walking and biking in their community. And so this forum helps connect people together, because we don't want you to feel like you're alone, because there are a lot of you that there is a lot of interest in walking, biking, and transit. This month, May, is Bike Month. So we're encouraging communities to participate in Bike Month, and there's a lot of resources out there that you can share. There's the bike safety quiz from Ride Illinois, which is a really great resource that can easily be shared with your community for teaching people rules of the road. There's a driver's awareness course as well that Ride Illinois hosts every month. That is great for teaching drivers on, or just educating drivers on how to share the road with others. But Bike Month, so several communities have issued a Bike Month proclamation for May, and I know that of those communities involved with Go Green Illinois, Brookfield did this, Northbrook did this, and Highland Park did this. Some communities, I believe Highland Park, you have a display in your library, a lot of different bike books. And also in communities that are celebrating Bike Month, some communities are hosting bike rides, as well as other activities to just encourage people to hop on their bike for the start of the summer. And then sharing your ideas about statewide transportation policies. So not only are we're looking at local and regional policies and programs, but at the state level, there are a lot of policies that we can try to advocate for that can make a big difference throughout the state when it comes to transportation. That could be funding transit, funding service, funding new routes. That could be looking at just our statewide complete streets law and strengthening that and making sure our state is adopting national best practices when it comes to walking and biking design and facilities. So we actually have a survey out there right now. We're trying to collect input, and we'll use that information to put together a platform that we'll be sharing with all of the candidates for governor to get their take on what transportation investments we need to make statewide. And then again, we've mentioned there are a lot of funding opportunities out there. So in July, we'll have a funding webinar series, but with the new bipartisan infrastructure law, we have more funding available in the funding programs that have been available for a while, as well as some new funding programs that are coming out, including a climate reduction program, which was just announced last month. And it's not open yet for applications, but we're trying to collect more information about all of these opportunities and make sure we're sharing them with everyone. And then again, we have a lot of resources. So please get in touch with us if you're looking for support and you're interested in improving walking and biking in your community. So I think that's all we have.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. I want to just a couple things prompted by the chat here. First of all, complete streets, you mentioned complete streets. Highland Park passed our complete streets policy, which we're now in the process of updating. That is free. There is no cost to putting in place a complete streets policy. And all it says basically is that bikes and pedestrians have equal rights and access to the roads. So what it means in practice is that when a road is redone, or when a developer comes in and builds a subdivision or anything like that, they have to take the needs of bikes and pedestrians into consideration, as well as the needs of cars. So it's a good way to start getting some of these, sidewalk connections and bike facilities, in place. And there was a question here from Tracy saying that Park Ridge, or Glenn, I think Park Ridge, he said, does not have any money for bike and pedestrian projects. And I know you, Maggie and Audrey, have gone through a huge list of potential grant opportunities, which is really helpful. But I also want to point out, I think Beth mentioned at one point that they calculated in Wilmette the percentage of funding used for bike and pedestrian projects versus for roads. And it's a very stark contrast. There may be, in a good community, there may be 5% used for bike and pedestrian projects versus 95% for roads. You take a little bit of money away from that road budget, you're going to get a big impact in terms of bike and pedestrian improvements because they're a lot less expensive to build. So it's not that there isn't money, it's that you need to figure out how your community is prioritizing it and consider changing that. So there's a question in the chat from Rose. Where space is limited, it may come down to converting existing roads to bike and pedestrian paths. Is that realistic?
I think that can sometimes be politically challenging to take away a road. It has been done, but in some, that's definitely the case of like older communities that have narrow, limited space. There are some improvements that can still be made to the road to make it safer, but sometimes it's then looking for an alternative route for those who might not feel as comfortable biking with traffic. But I don't know, so in Batavia, they have a street that's, dedicated to, that prioritizes people walking and biking. They call it a Warnorf, a Dutch idea. So it really slows down all car traffic. So there's a lot of traffic calming that can also be done. So there's various ideas to deal with individual situations.
Yeah, and I would just chime in. Often you can do a road diet. So if you have 4 lanes, many of our roads are 4 lanes, you move it to 3 lanes where you have 1 lane in each direction and a middle lane, which becomes the turning lane. And then it frees up space to add bike lanes on both sides, or else one side a bi-directional bike lane. And that is actually a better layout for safety. And often it doesn't change the amount of cars that can get, even though people feel like scared that it's going to create incredible congestion. It's been shown that people drive more carefully, the speeds are more moderated, and most of the time the road functions as well, if not better, in these kinds of scenarios. So I think it is a question a lot of times of reallocating space on our roads versus maybe, taking the whole road away is probably a hard thing to do, but reallocating the space is really, I think, the way to go and what we're seeing a lot of.
Are there other questions or comments? Either put them in the chat or use the raise hand feature.
Kim, I just wanted to mention that Edith was asking how groups have gotten this important messaging across in public to our communities. Bike Walk Wilmette had a booth at our environmental fair that had 3 glass jars, and we invited people to, guess the number of jelly beans that were in a huge mason jar, and that was Wilmette's transportation budget. In the next smaller quart-sized jelly jar was about 1 inch of jelly beans. And that was the percentage of our transportation budget that went to bike and walk issues. As it turns out, that was entirely sidewalk repair. And the 3rd glass jar that was completely empty, that was funding that going to make biking better in Wilmette, and it was completely empty. And it was a stunningly clear representation of where those dollars are going. And Kim, it's right. I mean, our job is to try to get some of those transportation dollars transferred into non-vehicular travel.
Okay, I think that's a good way to end this program because we do need to have time to do our community sharing and hear from others on what they're doing. So Maggie, Audrey, and Edith, thank you so much for coming today and for sharing some great information. There's a lot of information in the chat as well, which we will capture and post to the website.
Okay, again, the content of this meeting will be posted to the YouTube. There will be a link on the website, but it'll be posted to YouTube's the YouTube channel for Go Green Illinois. And also we will capture the important links in the chat and put that on the resources page of the Go Green Illinois website. So Kim, I think you and I work together to spend this portion now is for community reports. One of the strengths of this organization is our opportunity to share best practices and figure out ways that we can replicate really good things happening in our neighboring communities. So we spend this time to share with very brief reports. We may have as many as 30 different communities. It's going to be very fast. Make sure that you know which, if we can only have one speaker community. So you can see who's participating in the meeting by looking under participants, and just make sure you know who from your community will be speaking. So let's start out with about 1.5 minutes per community. Sorry, it has to be so fast. We're going to start with Highland Park because we're giving them a couple more minutes to talk about a program we think is particularly important that you might want to replicate. So with that, we're going to start with Jenny Futterman. And then if we have Liz Kunkel, we're going to start then with Winnetka and then go A to Z. So Liz, you're on deck. Jenny Futterman from Highland Park.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Excellent transportation meeting. I would love to see a bike the drive along Green Bay Road someday. Anyways, I wanted to tell everyone about something you can do when you ride your bike to the farmer's market. You could take this plastic reduction toolkit that I have been working on with Go Green Barrington and Go Green Vernon Hills, Lincolnshire. So, you know, we all get the emails from our people like, why do we have plastic bags at the market? This is awful. What can we do about it? So we decided to make this toolkit, and it's a couple pages. You can find it on our website. There's a letter to a market manager saying, hey, this is who we are. Our people don't want plastic. Here's some tips about how you can get people to reduce plastic at the market. So they can copy and paste stuff. We have language here. There's a printable version of it. And then we also have the same thing for a vendor. So if you know a market manager, or if you do manage a market, you could send this to your vendors and say, hey, here's some ideas about, you know, ways to wrap up your produce or whatever without plastic. So we also have the vendor tips, which are kind of similar. And we, Jen Lucas made some awesome signs. So we have links for people to, you know, they could go and print out a sign to hang up at their, in their booth if they're doing something, or at the market. And we are going to be doing, let me see if I can get my other tab here. This is a flag that we have created as well. So if someone reads through our toolkit and then they decide, hey, I love this, I want to stop using plastic bags or something, they can email us and we will send them a free flag to hang up. Reuse every week. They can just roll it up and hang it up and say, I'm trying to quit plastic. So we'll put the link on our chat in the chat. And if anyone has questions about it, you can email us, or if you want to get some flags, they should be ready next week. Just email us and we'd be happy to share some out with people. And I think that's it on the toolkit, unless I missed anything, Seema or Jen or Andy. And then as far as Go Green Highland Park, we just launched our Habitat Highland Park last week, and our army of planters has planted 2 demonstration gardens near Stoopy Cabin, a woodland garden and a sunny pollinator garden. So excited to share progress on that with people and encourage them to make a space in their own yard. We did hook up with the North Shore Plant Club, which is amazing. And we have a link now through them. So if people buy plants, Go Green Highland Park is going to get a portion of all those sales for the whole season. So it's kind of our first plant sale without doing any of the work. And thank you to the Plant Club. And we're going to have an open house. Somebody else did an open house and we said, that's a great idea. So we have a coffee shop that we used to meet at prior to the pandemic. So we're going to go back there this month and just hang out for a few hours and try to recruit more people to our team and face to face, you know, remember that. And I think that's it. Thanks.
Yeah. Jenny, great. That is an amazing resource for all of us to use, because we probably all have farmers markets and there are thousands of plastic bags that get used every single week at those farmers markets. So thank you. Where would we find those resources? Remind us.
It's at the gogreenhp.org website. So I have a tab for farmers market and you can go down there and you can download it, either version, a printable, or just look at it. We're here, you know, you can email us if you have questions about it. And, you know, our goal too is like, if you're already at your farmer's market as Go Green, be that person for the market manager that's helping reduce plastic, because most of the managers don't have the time to tack it on. So the idea is ask your Rotary Club to do that. Ask your Go Green group to do it, or Scouts. It's kind of whoever you think can lend a hand at the market to get the word out is who should be looking at it and taking it in there, because most managers probably don't have time to tack it on unless they're already committed to it. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you. This brings to mind, if you aren't scheduled to be at your farmer's market, that is a great place to reach out to your community. Many of the markets many of the markets give pro bono. I'm letting people into the waiting room. They give pro bono tables to go to nonprofit groups that pass muster. So that's something you might be interested to do. Liz Kunkel, if you are on deck, but I'm not sure you
I'm here.
are. Okay,
I'm
great.
here.
Next, Liz
Sorry.
Kunkel with Winnetka.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Go Green Winnetka coincidentally was contacted by the director of our farmers market this year a few weeks ago and asked if we would do demonstrations of composting at our farmers market. So we are rocking and rolling in Go Green Winnetka. We did a lot of internal strategic planning through the pandemic. We created committees to work on different issues, mostly substantive in the village, one internal getting communications, because I got a great communications person, but she needs a lot of help because she's got such high standards. She can't do it all herself. And then the substantive issues are compost, which is me, plastics, habitat, which will be broken up into other groups, energy, which will include solar. And I put in the chat earlier, we are planning to do a solar tour of Winnetka homes specifically because we're really unique in Winnetka, given our power plant situation. We're not ComEd customers. So it's really helpful and necessary to have that kind of tour in Winnetka to show people how to do it because it's different than most other communities. So we're going to do that. We have done a yard tour, a sustainable yard tour. We call ours Yards That Work. We've done those in the past. We opted not to do one this year. We didn't do one the last couple of years because we also in Winnetka are in the middle of a process of updating our comprehensive plan for the village. And in addition to being the head and founder of Go Green Winnetka, which I've been working on for 10 years, in the last 1 year and 4 years respectively, I was named as a plan commissioner and an environmental commissioner in Winnetka. So I've been working on the environmental stuff for about 5 years generally, and now specifically on our plan, comprehensive plan, and in that committee for the last almost year or so. So I'm getting a lot of direct input on that long-term planning document and getting things, I mean, not getting things in, but working at getting things in like EV ready, construction and renovations and active transportation and biking, walking plans and compost, et cetera. And on the compost front, I want to say really quickly that if anybody on this call was on the Go Green Illinois Leaders call last month or know in which community this happened, somebody mentioned that they were hosting a cocktails and compost or compost and cocktails event. And I've asked a couple people about it and no one can remember who was doing that. But in my former life, I was a trademark attorney for wineries. And now that I'm like a total compost freak, it's really, it's unbelievable to me that I didn't think about doing cocktails and compost until I heard somebody else mention it. But I'm all over this. I have an event planned for next Wednesday, the 18th. I'm going to start a series of compost and cocktail events. Was it Farm? I don't know. I literally don't know. If anybody can help me.
I was thinking I read about Elwa Farm.
I'll check with them. I want to give them a shout out for the idea. But I'm starting a series of cocktails and compost events. I'm going to do the first two at my house. I'm inviting the core group of our Go Green Winnetka planning team and compost committee. Next week or 2 weeks later, I'm inviting all of our village trustees and key staff members. And after that, I'm opening it up to other people, keeping everybody on the list who couldn't attend previously until they can. I told them I will hound them until they come. And then it will start happening at other people's houses. So the idea is to start at my house where I've got some systems set up and then go to other people's houses where they might want help setting their systems up. And I and other people can walk through and ask questions and make it interactive and keep it no more than 10 people at a time for safety and conversation reasons. Done.
Okay, that's awesome, Liz. You guys are always doing a lot. I'm going to go do a quick report for Wilmette, and then we're going to start at the top of the alphabet. So if your town begins with an A or a B or a C, please be ready to unmute when you're called on. Okay, and Wilmette, we just had our like 7th or 8th native plant sale. In addition to selling lots of native plants and making money, we gave away the small little oak trees from Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. They will give them to you for free if you are willing to put them in the hands of people willing to take care of them, but they're very small. We are going to have a sustainable yard tour on July 17th. It's an incredibly popular event that we also videotape 5-minute videos of these same yards. where you can really hear what's going on in case you didn't hear the yard owner do it. The videos are super important and have gotten viewed 1,200 times from last year. So that's an important element. We're going to be working hard on greening our multi-unit residential buildings and homeowners associations and neighborhoods. It's something we've never done before, but probably if you look at your communities, you may be really surprised at how many of those buildings you actually have. And if you can get in and talk to the owners or the management, you can tap into those people and maybe make sure that they're recycling. Maybe you can figure out how they can compost. Maybe you can talk to them about their groundskeeping practices. So there's a real potential in that area, and we're going to be doing that. We're also going to be greening a big sesquicentennial event in our community. We're starting months in advance to try to reduce the environmental impact of that event. And again, the Go Green groups, we're in the position to do that. And probably it's not on a lot of people's radar screen. So you have to start early, work cooperatively, and try to get people excited about reducing the environmental impact of the big events in your community. Wanted to mention, related to the transportation, that we had some New Trier High School students who wanted to do a study on and try to present to Wilmette why we should have better, broader bike lanes on Sheridan Road. They did a great job and they presented to our village trustees, and trustees listen when kids present. So if you don't have a relationship with your local high school, that's a great place to start. No Mow May is becoming really popular. That's the idea that we're going to allow basically dandelions to bloom because it's an important source of energy and food for pollinators. In yards that are not mowed in May, there are 5 times the number of pollinators. So that's a really important and fun movement. No Mow May, Google it, it's pretty cool. We're also doing work relatively new with dark sky issues and light pollution. That's kind of a win-win topic. Very few people don't like that idea. So if you're looking for a project, dark skies is a really great project to take on. So with that, let's see, Maggie, did you have something you wanted to say? Not sure why you are pinned there large, but that's okay. Okay, so do we have anyone, Christina Murphy or anyone else who wants to say anything for Aurora? Barrington, you're next, although they said they were going to cede their time for the market issue. Anyone from Aurora or Barrington?
And I've put a list of communities in the chat for who's on next. So hopefully.
Oh, that's handy. Thank you. Buffalo Grove, Ben Isabella, Rosemary Heilman. Susan Casey, 7th Generations Ahead. Always doing amazing, amazing work. If you don't know 7 Generations Ahead, they're a terrific organization to partner with.
We also have our first Chicago group. Is Kindy on?
Kindy Kroller, she came on a little bit late. So if she's on.
Yep, I'm here. I'm just, I'm commuting, so pardon the train. I'll cede my time as well.
Okay, the sound is a little funky. If we skip over you, put your name in the chat and we'll come back to you because we go pretty fast. If you don't unmute fast, just put your name in the chat. Okay, Kindy Kroller, she is the one who started our first ever Chicago Neighborhood Go Green group. How are things going?
Things are going good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. One of the things that I was able to do is secure a table at our farmers market. So we are working on getting different vendors every week. I have a Facebook group started and volunteers for a farmers market, which will be about 10 tabling events. So we're trying to make the connection to a bike group, garden group. So I'll keep you posted.
Okay, Kindy, we're losing your sound. So we can't hear you really well. Not sure what's going on, and she's muted herself. Okay, so would anyone like to mention anything from Crystal Lake, Des Plaines, or Evanston, starting with Crystal Lake? Des Plaines or Evanston? Liz Bowman is recently started Des Plaines. I don't know if she was registered, not sure whether she's actually signed on.
Oh, we also have Deerfield in the Ds.
Okay, Deerfield. Anyone from Deerfield want to give a report?
Hold on.
Okay. Debbie Brown. We had a lovely ephemeral walk, and this year, I don't know if our park district hired a better PR person, but we've asked them over and over to include us when we're doing restoration on their properties. And now they are writing up a storm about go green, and they're green, and we're getting a lot more volunteers. So that's wonderful. And we've got our River Day coming up, and Art and Camilla are still working with the village and doing everything at once. And that's where we're at. That's it for now. And we're planning a garden walk.
That's great. You do great write-ups on your website of your gardens with photos, which is really lovely. Okay,
I think we missed Brookfield.
Brookfield, yes. Anyone want to give a report from Brookfield?
I can go super quick. So we're still pretty much just boosting what our Village Conservation Commission is doing, and I'm actually both of those things. But we did partner with our library over Earth Week, and we had a few events, one particularly about the commission, so I'll skip that, but we had a really successful alternative fuels car show in the library parking lot. We had over 100 people come. We had an assortment of electric vehicles, hybrids, and then a couple biofuels. We're also working with our library for, we don't have a date set yet, but hopefully in August for a sustainable lawns panel. So we're gonna have a little presentation about why it's important, and then we're going to have members of the community give before and after pictures and explain, we call it neighbors teaching neighbors. So talking about how they converted their lawns, what their process was, and then giving resources at the end. So that's what we're working on right now, and we're hoping soon to get more specific Go Green events, but we're slowly building. Thanks.
Okay, that sounds great. I've lost track. Anyone from Evanston? Okay, Deerfield. Okay, so how about Glencoe and Glenview? Anyone willing to wanting to make a report?
I've got a few things from Glencoe, if that's okay.
Great.
I don't think Barney's here. He's chair of the Sustainability Commission. I was elected to the village board last spring, and I'll make a report. First of all, our 2 new Bolt EVs are in operation here as part of the police department. We're very excited about that. In addition, we received a grant for a charging station. We don't need the charging station 24/7, and that charging station is in a publicly accessed place right in the middle of downtown, and anybody can use it. Secondly, I want to talk for a moment about the city's capital improvements plan, because that's where the rubber meets the road on all these plans. If it doesn't get funded, it doesn't get done. Every community should have a capital improvements plan. Our capital improvement plan for this year includes bikeways, safe routes to schools, and some other road and street improvements, including work on the Green Bay Trail. The last 2 things I want to mention are these next 2 Saturdays, our community collection for recycling. Our idea is that we try to get everyone to recycle as much as they can. And then the weekend after that is what we call Spring Cleaning Day, where you can put anything out on the curb, but it'll get towed away, but it doesn't necessarily get recycled. So that's it for the moment. Other thing I would like to say is that don't be afraid to serve on advisory boards and commissions. Who knows, you may end up a village trustee.
Great, thanks. Lots going on. Good stuff in Glencoe. Glen Ellen, you're on deck. Last call for Glenview.
Yes, Glenview. We hosted a green drinks recently, and because of the regional working group on leaf blower regulation, we highlighted their work. We had our representative come and talk about it. We had fact sheets about the health and environmental impacts of it. And at the meeting, we had our local Ace Hardware owner who gave a terrific shout out to Ego. And it turns out that our park district is buying, as their older landscaping equipment fades out, they are buying from our local vendor Ego products. And she talked about the interchangeable battery packs at different levels of charge. So that was really great. And we plan to continue education on this issue in the community in preparation for the fall, since we only have a noise ordinance and it doesn't even include a decibel level. So we hope to be prepared to encourage the village to take action on leaf blowers. That's it right now. Other things going on, but that's the main thing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mary. Okay, next up, Jacqueline.
Hi, everyone. Yes. Hi, everyone. We've had a bunch of events in Glen Ellen recently. So on April 16th, we co-hosted with the Park District a gently used sports equipment swap. This is the first time we've done something like this with the Park District, and it was really well received by the community. People were very excited about this event. Everything was, there was like a minimal price attached to everything that came in. So it raised a little bit of money for the Park District Scholarship Fund, but more importantly, it kept a lot of stuff out of the landfill, and most residents were able to get gently used equipment, for next to nothing. So I think it was something, there was a ton of stuff, but I counted 40 pairs of cleats and about 100 balls and a bunch of other things, skis, golf clubs, lots of stuff. There were added benefits as well. So there was a after school soccer program that's hosted by one of the community organizations here. They just started. We were able to donate a lot of leftover cleats and soccer balls and water bottles to them. There was a local PE teacher who we were able to donate all the leftover balls to her. We were able to recycle a lot of uniforms through the textile recycling program. So just a lot of additional benefits that came out of it that we weren't planning on. So it was really wonderful. And we're already going to do another one towards the end of July to get ahead of the fall sports season. So if anyone wants to do one in your community, I'm happy to share information on that. We're doing some other things. So we're having a wine and vines organic gardening chat at the end of May. So there's a woman here who has a local organic veggie gardening business and grows all the plants from seed in her garage starting in January. So it's a real labor of love. So we're gonna co-host an event with her. We've also been asked to help. Our park district is doing a referendum here to hopefully get residents to vote and get some additional money for the park district. And they've asked Go Green to help spread the word and advocate for this, because the park district themselves cannot necessarily ask voters to vote yes on this thing. So that's a real nice endorsement for us, that we've developed a good partnership with our park district, and we'll be helping to spread the word on that. And then lastly, this is for everyone on the call. I volunteer pretty regularly with Scarce. I think a lot of you are familiar with Scarce and Kay McKean and their work. They're going to be doing a solar event with Citizens Utility Board for some environmental commission groups in August. And Kay wanted to know if some Go Green groups would be interested in doing a similar event at Scarce. It would include a field trip and a tour of their new facility. If you haven't been there, it's awesome. So I'll drop my email in the chat if you might be interested in it. We can connect further, but I think the timing would be towards the end of summer, August or early September.
Okay, great. Thanks for that report from Glen Ellen. Okay, anyone from LaGrange with Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, and Lincolnwood on deck? LaGrange?
Hi, this is Rose from LaGrange. We had an Earth Day in Motion event, our environmental commission, and it was the Park District and the LaGrange Business Association. It was actually kind of nice that when you get to partner with the people that aren't necessarily focused on green. So you had the business, and the workout, and there was an outdoor event. It rained, but it was still successful. We had where does it go, recycling contamination booth. The Environmental Commission just passed a cost share program for sewer backups prevention. So part of the climate resiliency effort. And there's going to be a native plant bike tour on June 26th. And then Go Green LaGrange is headed by David Bryant. So Go Green LaGrange is going to be at the farmers market in LaGrange every week with different recycling information. And I'm definitely going to pass along the toolkit because he had to get off the call. One question I have just on a personal note is my daughter's graduating and they have disposable caps and gowns. And my older daughter is wearing my younger daughter is wearing my older daughter's cap and gown, but I'm trying to work with the Sustainability Commission at this school to try to figure out how we can avoid that single use. 1,000 kids every year graduate approximately at the local high school. So any ideas, I welcome them. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I gotta echo, that is insane. There are some schools where they rent their caps and gowns and other schools where they purchase them. The rental situation means that you return, you put it on the one time and then you return it to the school and another kid gets to wear it next time. Those things are made mostly of plastic because they're polyester. So good work trying to change that.
Yes, if anyone has any answers, go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay, a report from Lake Bluff. Anyone from Lake Bluff? Lake Forest is on deck.
Lake Forest and Lake Bluff kind of work together as Green Minds. Lake Forest, Bluff, and also Knollwood, actually, which doesn't get a lot of notoriety. But I want to first just thank Go Green Illinois for putting this program together today, because I do feel like in our car-centric culture, we forget how much the emissions and the general material that industry produces, how it impacts our planet. So thank you. We have for the last few years put together Earth Day videos because we've had this pandemic we're all focusing on, and not being together has been difficult. But these videos have been appealing to our community members to raise awareness for issues around being sustainable. And this year, instead of a video, we were able to actually have an event, which was wonderful. And interestingly, as we started developing our idea, which is basically act for Earth, create an intention that some Earth-friendly action that you can willingly partake in, not just for Earth Day or Earth Month, but throughout the year, so that we could raise awareness for a longer term than just Earth Day. So when the city got wind of this, the assistant city manager asked if we would be interested in holding an event at Market Square, which is the local community area in East Lake Forest. And so April 3rd, we had an event, and we appealed to people that attended to create their intentions. And we got things like, I'm going to increase recycling, I'm going to plant more flowers to help the bees and insects, or I'm going to ride my bicycle not once, but twice every week to work. And these are things that we want to document and share on our social media channel throughout the year. So that's the plan. Additionally, we've been recently working with our local Deer Path Middle School, helping the 5th grade class understand a little bit better ways in which they can recycle. And we're also asking them to consider taking this pledge, and the teachers have been embracing this, which has been wonderful. Beth, you mentioned this contentious issue of our artificial turf that is proposed. And right now there's a design phase study going forward for 10 acres. That's equivalent of 7 football fields of artificial turf behind Deer Path Middle School. And while this isn't a matter that Green Minds is taking on, because we actively try not to be adversarial with our city, but much more softly nudge our city by working with them. So we have sort of an adjunct group of some people in Lake Bluff that created this Go Real, Go Grass campaign. And if you want to learn more about it, go realgograss.com. And right now we're just scratching every channel we have to try to build awareness in the community about what's happening, because the city has very silently kind of pushed this forward, and it doesn't feel right in many ways. And I'm not sure where this will go, but stay tuned on that front.
Okay, thank you. You know,
sorry,
I'm going to
I'll
have to.
stop there. Thank you,
I'm
Beth.
gonna have to move on. I'm sorry, but that is such an important issue. Do check out Go Green, Go Grass. Thank you for your report. Lincolnwood. Anyone from Lincolnwood, Morton Grove on deck? Morton Grove with Naperville on deck? Northbrook.
Hi, this is Sheetal from Go Green Northbrook. So Go Green had a really, really busy month. So we have been having monthly touch base with our sustainability coordinator, Tessa, who's actually also on the call. And we have been working in partnership with our village, as well as the library, garden clubs, you know, all the other institutions in our area on various sustainability issues. So we actually worked with Tessa for the tree giveaway last month, which was a huge success. So almost 250 trees were given away by the village, and it was very well received by the residents overall. Then with Glenview, we actually partnered at the Glenview Earth event. And the other thing is we have also been supporting the village's plastic bag ordinance. And, you know, there have been a few pros and cons and, you know, a lot of people opposing it for various reasons, but it is definitely going forward to the sustainability committee, and hopefully, you know, we'll see a resolution on that soon. One really interesting aspect from our end that we had within the last week was actually we had a call with waste management. You know, the person who, it's a new position that has been created with waste management of someone who they are looking to audit the entire recycling cycle, you know, the life cycle of recycling. And it was interesting to see, like, you know, how the metrics around how much is really recycled versus, you know, what goes into landfill. And it is pretty dismal at this point in time. So, but her job has been created. So, you know, she is actively working with us. And one thing we are looking to do is we are looking to set up a session with either our library or at the village, which will be more of an education and Q&A session for residents on what they can do to keep their recycling clean, and also on waste management. And they are looking at what they can up their recycling percentage overall. Because a lot of it right now, if it's in doubt, they landfill versus even try to recycle at this point. And any amount of contamination can just contaminate the entire container. So even if 20 people do it right and 2 people don't, you know, the entire benefit of it is lost overall. So in addition to that, we have a partnership with the Garden Club, like sale. So we are actually showcasing composting there. And then, you know, we just have a few events related to composting. And composting is actually another thing we are talked with waste management about, because we would really like to just change the village's ordinance to give everyone a compost bin, you know, along with their garbage bin, and not have them, you know, sign up specifically for that separately. So that's all from my end. Thank you.
Great. That's a great example of when you have to opt into a program, it does not work as well. People should have to opt out to say, I don't want the compost bin. Okay, we've got Palatine, Park Ridge, and Riverwoods next. Anyone from Palatine? Anyone from Park Ridge?
Hello from Park Ridge. I have 4
Tracy.
things. Hi. With a recommendation from the new Sustainability Commission, Park Ridge now has an exclusive residential composting contract with Collective Resource. So that was a big deal. With encouragement from the city's former bike walk task force, the city made an official proclamation that May is Bike Month. So it's a start. And although the task force was disbanded by the city, Go Green is going to invite them to work with them. Go Green Park Ridge is having a native plant sale this weekend with the Maine East High School Ecology Club. And Go Green Park Ridge had a successful forest preserve clean event, and many new groups joined us, and other surrounding cities joined. And that's it for now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone from Riverwoods with Skokie and Vernon Hills on deck? Riverwoods?
I can report on Riverwoods. Our native plant sale is.
Can you speak up just a bit?
Yeah,
Lori?
I've been having problems with my, let me just see if this helps. Is that better?
No.
No. I've been having
No.
a lot of problems with my, let's try this. Hear me now?
We can read your lips now.
More thing. Let's see.
Yeah, not working really well.
How about this?
It's the same. Go ahead and give a short report and speak up as loudly as you can.
Okay, it is short. Our native plant sale will be on Saturday, the 14th, 12 to 3 at the Riverwoods Village Hall. And we are planning a Kids in Nature Arts program in August, and also potentially a village-wide garage sale.
Okay.
Okay,
Great.
what I heard was a village-wide garage sale, a Kids in Nature program, and one other thing,
The native plant sale.
native plant sale.
Awesome. Great. Okay, Skokie, Vernon Hills on deck. Anyone want to give a report from Skokie? We already heard about bike issues, but is there anything else anyone from Skokie wants to talk about? Okay, Vernon Hills. Seema, do we have Seema on?
Yes, I'm here, Beth.
Okay.
Yeah. Firstly, I just want to welcome Marlene Rampel. She is part of Go Green Vernon Hills in Lincolnshire. This is her first meeting here today, so I just wanted to welcome her. And as far as what's going on in our area, we had a Spring Fest last week at the Vernon Area Library, which is in Lincolnshire. And one of the things that we did is we partnered with Swalco to encourage people to take a pledge to sign up for municipal food scrap pickup program. If they did sign the pledge, Swalco offered free over-the-counter compost bins to people that signed up. So that was really successful in getting people to the table, talking about compost. We also used some of the IFSC materials that Liz Kunkel and the ICOT team helped to put together, which was a backyard composting cookbook, which I highly recommend. I'll put in a link for it after we're done in order to promote backyard composting. The other thing we did, which we got a lot of people engaged in, is we talked about the House Bill 5533 and Senate Bill 2960 to reduce waste in national parks. And this is to eliminate the sale and distribution of single-use plastics in national parks. So we had people sign these postcards, right, to Congressman Schneider. And we had about 20 to 25 people write these postcards to Congressman Schneider to ask him to support the bill. And thank you to Jenny Parterman for, giving that idea to us. And so the plan is to take these postcards to him and hopefully get him to co-sponsor the bill. We did something very similar with the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act, and we think we were some of these tactics were successful in getting him to co-sponsor. The other thing that's going on is we're still working with the Lincolnshire School District to get commercial composting at the schools. The roadblock that we've hit right now is that a lot of the waste haulers are not interested in just picking up only organic. They want the recycling as well as the landfill included in the contract. And the current waste hauler doesn't provide organics recycling. So it's a bit of a challenge. I mean, we've got cost estimates from Collective Resource, which is the only one that's willing to do it. So we'll see. Again, we're working with Merland to help us figure out ways to offset the cost and hopefully get the district to pick up commercial composting. They are very interested. I think now cost is going to be maybe a barrier. We'll see. We're meeting with the district superintendent tomorrow. And finally, we've made a very, very slight step forward towards the gas-powered leaf blowers, Beth, and we met with the village manager, the assistant village manager, the police superintendent. They had their whole staff there to meet with us, and this actually was pushed forward with John Mariani. He is from the Shalom here in Vernon Hills and highly interested in the issue. And so he and I met with all of them. And I mean, I think this is the third time, you know, I met with them in 2020 and then last year, 2021. And so what they said is, okay, we're interested to see what comes out of the commission from that Highland Park is overseeing. But in the meantime, they offered us a table on Arbor Day, and they said, you know, education is key. And so they would like us to talk about this and try to find other ways to educate the community before we start speaking about the ordinance. And that's it
Okay,
from us.
that's a great first step. Thank you so much, Seema. Any reports from, we've got someone from Western Springs who registered. No one's ever been on from Western Springs. Sean, if you're with us, let me know. Dorothy Nolan, Winthrop Harbor. And I did have a few other things I wanted to mention before we close from Wilmette, and also just in general things. If your group has never had an intern before, it is a fabulous way to help develop the interests of a young person and also to get some really great work done. If you need a description for an internship, I've got a boilerplate one that you could use. I'm Beth Drucker with Go Green Wilmette. Love to share that with you. We've already started our beach cleanups. We did our first one with a partnership with Alliance for the Great Lakes and had a huge number of volunteers and really great turnout. We're doing habitat work days. We have amazing bird habitat that the warblers are going through right now at Gilson Park. Every Sunday in May, we host guided bird walks, 8 o'clock. If you have never birded during spring migration at Gilson Park, it's really awesome. Come join us, 8 o'clock. We're going to try to do another EV car show because that's a really great way for people. Love to hear that another group did that. We also, I forgot to mention, we continue our webinars. We're having a webinar on May 18th about food choices, farms and community. That's going to be quite good. You're all invited to join us on May 18th. Interesting one on June 8th. That is on about green burials. Wow, that is an interesting topic. I hope you'll join us and promote that with your group. Both webinars will be recorded. And in October, we're going to be doing one on green feminine hygiene choices. So we're doing some, interesting new topics this year. With that, it's 2:54. Kim, can you conclude for us, please?
I will, but I just want to make sure, have we missed any community that wanted to report? We went through the whole alphabet, but if we missed you, please speak up now.
Very quickly.
And if not, our next meeting is July 12th at 1 o'clock. As Beth said, I think we're going to keep doing these virtually because we're able to get people from a wider geographic area when we do it that way. This next meeting is going to be how to develop, implement, strengthen, and modify local ordinances, which can be things like leaf blowers, sidewalks, tree ordinance, EV readiness, building codes, sustainable fleets, bike-friendly communities, pollinator-friendly, bird-friendly ordinances. So those are all really important things that can be done locally. And I hope people will join us for that. We will also be talking about local solar tours, which Beth mentioned at the beginning, and how to do those sorts of programs, garden tours, other local projects that we can copy from each other. So the July meeting is July 12th, typically not super well attended, but since we're virtual, hopefully people can take a break from being outside and come in for that meeting. And we hope to see you all then. If you're not already on our email list, go to the website, gogreenillinois.org, and sign up there for our email newsletter, and then you will get notices of our meetings, and you can sign up and get the Zoom link. And with that, at 2:55, 5 minutes early. I think that's
well. We need to thank our speakers who joined us. They may have signed off to do their transportation work, but they love the fact that this Go Green Illinois network gives them an opportunity to talk to environmental leaders in so many different communities. We were 51 people at the most, representing 30 different communities. It's a powerful network, and we're so pleased that you are all part of it. For those of you that have been going, keep at it year after year. For those who are new, we hope that this group is going to give you inspiration and energy And feel free to reach out to Kim and me at any time, and or anyone that you have met through the network. So with that, Kim and I bid you good afternoon, and thank you for spending time with us, and we'll see you again in 2 months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.